In our first edition, we explored who did it first. In the second episode, we're flipping the script and asking who did it last. Each question comes with 4 options, but only one is correct. Ready to find out who did it last? Let's begin. What was the last country in the world to officially abolish slavery? Mauritania officially abolished slavery in 1981, but enforcement only followed decades later. What was the last studio album released by the Beatles? Although recorded earlier, Let It Be was the last Beatles album released in May 1970. What was the last Disney animated film made using traditional hand-drawn animation? The Princess and the Frog, released in 2009, marked Disney's final return to hand-drawn animation. At which Olympic Games did women last not participate at all? The first modern Olympics in 1896 excluded women entirely from competition. Which African colony was the last to gain independence? Namibia gained independence from South Africa in 1990 after decades of struggle. What was the last country admitted to the United Nations? South Sudan became the 193rd member of the United Nations in 2011. What was the final episode of the TV show Friends called? The final episode of Friends, aired in 2004, was fittingly titled The Last One. Which Pixar film was the final release before Disney officially acquired the studio? Cars was released in 2006, just before Disney completed its acquisition of Pixar. Who was the last American president to wear a top hat during their inauguration ceremony? John F. Kennedy wore a top hat at his 1961 inauguration, making him the last to do so. What was the final film directed by Stanley Kubrick? Eyes Wide Shut, released in 1999, was Kubrick's final film and completed shortly before his death. Which was the last state to join the United States? Hawaii became the 50th and last state to join the United States in 1959. Which was the last war that featured traditional cavalry charges? Remarkably, traditional cavalry charges occurred as late as World War II, notably by Polish and Soviet units. What was the last country in the world to ban leaded gasoline? Algeria banned leaded petrol in 2021, completing a decades-long global phase-out. What was the last main Harry Potter book to be published? Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, released in 2007, concluded the 7-book series. Which country was the last to be connected to the global internet network? Although South Sudan became the world's newest country in 2011, it had internet access immediately after independence. Eritrea, by contrast, connected to the global internet later, but access remains extremely restricted. Even today, Eritrea has the lowest internet penetration in the world. Which country was the last to formally leave the Soviet Union? Kazakhstan was the final republic to declare independence from the Soviet Union in December 1991. Which artist closed the original Woodstock Festival in 1969? Jimi Hendrix delivered the iconic final performance at Woodstock, including his famous version of the U.S. anthem. When did the last commercial flight of the Concorde take place? The final Concorde flight took place in October 2003. What was the final major studio movie released on VHS format? In 2006, A History of Violence became the final major studio film, released on VHS. Which movie marked Sean Connery's final appearance as 007? Although Sean Connery had already left the official Bond franchise after Diamonds Are Forever, he returned once more in '83 to portray James Bond in Never Say Never Again, an unofficial remake of Thunderball. It remains his final appearance as 007.